Good afternoon, everybody. It's Terry Houston, Global Vice President with HR Strategies Consulting. Thanks very much today for taking the time to enjoy this session on human experience management, now called HXM, and understanding what the hype's all about. There's certainly been a lot of transition out on the marketplace, and I hope I can help you understand a bit about what's transcending and where I see this particularly going. I will be sharing a copy of this presentation with people afterwards. If you do have questions, you please can ask those up in the chat box area, and I'll try to get to them either during or after the presentation today. So let's dive in and learn more about what human experience management is. For a long time now, the trend out on the marketplace has been using the term human capital management. And it got almost to be an overused term that meant a lot of things to a lot of different people. So now we have a new trend out on the marketplace, which is now called human experience management. So let's talk about how people viewed human capital management in the past, and then start defining what we think of and think about when we talk about human experience management. So in the old way of looking at human capital management, it was an approach that really looked at our employees as being assets, or, quote, our human capital. So the people in our workforce that we would measure their value based on how we would handle any other asset in the organization. So basically, we would treat them like a business and a part of our business, but not as individuals and not as a great experience. So this is what we used to call human capital management. So anything we did to manage those assets called humans inside of our organization. Now what we're finding is there's a lot of movement in the air, and a lot of this has to do with many factors. Can be around the amount of millennials in the workforce. It can be about the increased use of technology. You know, even just where, and I don't just mean HR technology, but I mean HR technology and all technology. So, you know, what's happened with the internet, with AI, with the robotics, with collaboration tools out there in the marketplace. So it's certainly impacting our organizations. And so what we're finding is happening now is there's a real movement to what we call HXM, and that means providing the tools that businesses need to continually listen to their workforce and understand where there are gaps so that they can improve experience for both individuals and teams. So that's a pretty generic term. So let's chunk it down just a little bit further here. It's really around the intent now to look at our people as truly our most important asset. So a lot of companies have talked about this being the case for years and years, and some have done a fairly good job in investing in their people, but it's really being pushed to the next level out there now. We know that the happier our employees are, the happier our customers are, and what we really need to do is change every HR process and decisions to really facilitate and reinvent the employee experience. And in the end, what this will do is accelerate business growth. So we're going to talk about this in more detail, but these are high-level definitions around what HXM, or human experience management, is being on the marketplace. It was driven by a number of factors, and one of them was around this business roundtable. So there are over 200 of the most senior business executives that have been meeting since 1972 to advise governments and address policy and you know, really come up with defining moments and facts that they feel are critical to business success. Now this group of highly educated and successful CEOs out there on the marketplace recently, when they had their meeting, decided that there is a real change in the air, and that we really need to put the interest of employees, suppliers, and communities on par with shareholders. If you remember in the past, it was always kind of a triangle between shareholder, values, customer values, and employee values, but shareholders were always on the top. And that's really changed, and now they're not looking at it where shareholders are now at the top of that, and that they truly believe that putting your focus in on your employees will drive the outcomes for your customers and your shareholders out there. So they said that in this paragraph here, this starts with compensating them fairly, providing important benefits. It also includes supporting them through training and education and how they develop new skills for a rapidly changing world. Fostering diversity, inclusion, dignity, and respect. So those are all things we start to see that some organizations grasp parts of, but more and more now organizations need to look at the employee as the key person in their organization that can make a difference and an outcome to affect their business. So how can they do that? And if they do that, what are the results? So besides these 200 businessmen, here's some more analysis. And when you get the presentation, this will link to the article that I found that captured this data and information in it. But I think these are all very, very compelling reasons. So you're saying, why should we stop doing what we're doing? Why should we reinvent or re-emphasize on how we engage and motivate our employees? And here's some pretty compelling reasons. Number one, and it probably should be just bigger and bigger on this page than anything, is it says that companies with highly engaged employees outperform their competition by 147%. Now, those are staggering results that can obviously dramatically improve companies' performance from a financial perspective. In the past, I've shared statistics around knowing that if you invest in great talent management solutions, you can outperform like companies by 22%. But this is 147%. The reason has never been stronger to have highly engaged employees in your organization. Some other key factors here are around point 2, which are companies that excel at customer experience have 1.5 times more engaged employees than companies with poor customer experience. So that's kind of looking at it from a reverse angle, but I'm sure the correlation is very similar. We're going to depict that throughout today's presentation, where we can prove that the more engaged our employees are, the more successful our customers are. And here it's saying, of course, the more happy their customers are, it typically means that their employees are more engaged. Number 3 says that only 31% of employees in the US say they are engaged in their work. 31.5%. So that's like the 68.5% of employees that we could move the needle on and drive some of that 140%, 7% of better productivity for our organizations. Those are really low numbers. Means that us in HR across the US are obviously not providing the support, the tools, and the capabilities to enable our employees to be satisfied and engaged in their job. Number 4 is 87% of customers' affinity towards Starbucks is driven by the way the company treats its employees. So again, those 2 and 4 are all focused on the customer's experience being a direct relation to how the employees are treated. So instead of serving coffee, being baristas inside the organization. Number 5, companies with a highly engaged workforce experience a 19.2% growth in operating income over a 12-month period. All these numbers obviously roll up, and that's part of that 147%. But if you could improve profitability in your organization by 19.2%, who at the C-level is not going to listen to you? Number 6 says 89% of companies expect to compete primarily on customer experience. So we are finding out on the marketplace that customer service is now again becoming very important to buyers. If they don't want customer experience, they're probably just buying things online and not dealing with any people directly at all. But even there, there has to be an experience level that is needed and required in order to have effective online ordering of products and services as well. But more and more, we're finding that people are willing to pay more for a better customer service experience. And this is depicting that, how important that's going to be. So if their interaction with you and your company is going to dictate whether they continue to buy from you, obviously we want to have the best possible employees and have them engaged as effectively as possible. Number 7 says 82% of employees at high-performing companies are highly engaged, but only 68% are at underperforming companies. So that's, again, just depicting what's happening in the best performing companies is they're more engaged than those that aren't. Number 8, 79% of employees at companies with above average customer experience are highly engaged in their jobs compared to 49% of employees at companies with average or below average customer experience scores. So we want to obviously start to strive by improving our employee experience to improve our numbers and not be in the 49%, but move up to that 79%. Number 9, business units with engagement and connection scores in the top 25% had 10% stronger customer metrics. Again, just being able to use data, and we're going to show you some examples of this hopefully later in our presentation, to be able to show which departments, which managers, which divisions are performing at the optimal rate and what that does to a company from an overall business and profitability perspective. And number 10, companies that invest in employee experience are 4 times more profitable than those that don't. So I mentioned earlier that there was a statistic that said if you had a great talent management solution, you were 22% more likely to be profitable than your competitors. So the new data and statistics are showing here that it's actually 4 times more profitability if we can really invest in our employee experience, and that is unbelievable numbers that can really, really impact our organization. And in HR, truly that's our goal. We don't want to be transactional and just be automating HR processes and driving, paying people, rewarding people at a very elementary level. We really want to be a lot more strategic inside of our organization and help drive business results and be seen as a catalyst to improving the profitability and the effectiveness of our companies. And these show that our job as being the ones who are responsible for hiring the right people, retaining the right people through engagement and motivation can make a major impact on the outcomes of our organizations. So the traditional ways of enabling and reaching employees now have to be rethought. So technologies are changing, expectations are changing, experiences are changing, and us as consumers, individuals, and employees are requesting and demanding, in some cases, different interactions from our organizations. So it's the here, how versus what, then when do we do this? So the bottom line is, we need to communicate more effectively. We need to interact better. We need to share data and information, best practices, technology better. We need to be continually learning. We need to be able to find what's working, what's not working. And we need to be able to do things that, and enable people to do things that we never enabled them to do before. What we expect and what we want is constantly changing as employees, and especially now with us having 5 generations inside of the workforce. So we have to understand what our employees expect and what they want so that we can enable them when they're ready to do it. As I mentioned, there's 5 generations inside the workforce. So what we have to do now is stop treating our people as those assets we talked about under human capital management and put them in the center of what powers our business. So they're going to be the keys to our success. So they're no longer just the assets that make things happen, but they're going to be the ones that are going to empower our businesses to drive our success. So we have to provide the same experiences to our employees, if not even better experiences than we do to our customers. And we have to be cognizant of the fact that because we do have 5 generations in our workforce, how we do that may be very different for each of those generations. So how do we do this? Part of it can be through technology and a focus, and obviously a lot of it is around the cultures and the way we build out our organization. So the value and the impact is shifting, and there's only so much data that we can look at and analyze to help us from an asset perspective. And when we get to this inflection point is where things that really kick in and change are how we motivate, inspire, and connect and engage our employees. And that's what's going to do that spike and really drive those business results. So if we're going along the old human capital management way and we're just treating them as an asset, but we're not investing in changing how we look at our employees as contributors, and we're not doing everything possible to make each and every minute of every day excellent for our employees, we're going to diminish our capabilities of reaping those rewards of that 4 times more profitable than like companies inside of our organizations. So it's going to require an expansion of capabilities in HR. So it's going to really change the way we have to build our HR teams and treat our employees. So before we used to have, heads of OD and total rewards and talent management and diversity and health and safety. Now we need to build into our organizations some what we call flex roles. So, our change agents, our innovators, our cultural architects, our experience designer, and our design thinkers. So these are people that are going to come into the organizations and flex a lot of capabilities into our organizations that are going to help us relook at how we're engaging and treating our employees every single moment of every single day. So we're not getting rid of the traditional roles, we're actually layering on a set of new roles or embedding those types of characteristics into some of our traditional roles. So what do employees really want, and what's going to make it a great day for all of those employees? Well, the Great 8 is listed here. So it really, excuse me, makes us step back and think of our employees. Are we making the experience mine or theirs? Have they learned something? Are they using their strengths? Are they seeing where they're making an impact into your organizations? Are they feeling accomplished? Were they inspired? Are they inspired? Have they made any progress? How are they doing in collaboration? Collaboration is huge, especially for the millennials. They really want to know that they can work better in teams and provide better outcomes for organization. So these are some of the things that we have to keep in mind as we're working with our employees on a day-to-day basis. Are we providing these great 8 features to our employees on a day-by-day basis? What we found traditionally in the workforce is that we had looked at each individual as an asset, but individuals are part of teams, and obviously they're contributing to organizations. And the data now that we have available to us obviously is showing some alarming rates of contribution of these individuals and how they're performing, both on the outcomes of teams and organizations. So regardless of what we're doing inside the organization, what process they're in, so whether we're recruiting and onboarding them, or rewarding or paying them, or developing them, or changing their roles and responsibility inside of our organization, they have to be treated just like our customers, or even better than our customers. We have to make sure that every step of the process of them as an employee is accomplishing all of those great 8s. We want to make sure that every experience is an outstanding experience for our employees. So we want to make sure that the recruiting process is seamless inside of our organizations, that they're given high touch, that there's no delays, that they think we're very interested in them specifically as candidates, that we understand and know their roles. We want to onboard them effectively. We want to make sure that we're giving them all the tools and that they need each and every day inside of their organizations to achieve. We want them to meet their peers and align with people in the organization that are helping them get up to productivity quicker than anything else. We want to give them access to websites and places where they can learn more before they even walk inside of our organizations. We want to make sure we're creating meetings and setting goals for them so that they know how they're aligned and how they're making that impact to the organization. And then, of course, as they become employees, we want to continue to reward them. And this isn't just financially, it's kudos, it's praises that they get from both their customers and their managers and their peers. So constantly giving them feedback and rewarding them for how they're performing inside their organizations. Obviously, pay still is a major component, and anybody that doesn't get paid is obviously not going to be very effective in an organization because they won't be very engaged. So paying is important, and paying fairly is also important to them. Developing, we found out on the marketplace to be an area where employees we find are finding almost parallel to money now in total compensation. They want to know that they can grow inside an organization and make an impact on the organization. So having key and clear ways for them to be able to take control of their careers and develop their own careers is important. And then as our organizations are changing and our employees are changing inside their roles, we need to, again, make sure that each of those interactions is handled in the utmost professional way, keeping the employee fully engaged, letting them know how they're going to be contributing to the organization, what's in it for them, and how they can align to the corporate goals and drive real business values. This is what we call our O data, and what we're finding now is taking external data and feedback and collaboration data and information and communication and connections data, and really being able to layer that on top of how we're touching our employees every single day, and understanding how the company is actually doing and performing in those areas. So this is an area that we're going to focus and show you a little bit on how we're doing that with the Qualtrics product from SuccessFactors at the end of this overall presentation. So on the left-hand side are some of the things that are impacting the O data. So we're doing a lot more with conversational AR and robotics process automation. So we're trying to really improve the experience for employees. So now they can talk into their phones and request vacation time. Now we can automate a lot of the manual processes that they were doing and enable them to be a lot more strategic. We can also use machine learning to make a lot more recommendations and predictions about how they're behaving. So again, these are all great ways that we're improving their overall day-to-day experience inside our solutions. And then we can look at that feedback we're getting with the X data and know how our organizations are performing out there. So there's been a real change in the product strategy as well. And today I won't be able to deliver all of the new functionality inside of SuccessFactors, but happy to connect you with some videos on the roadmap possibilities in future. But want you to know that we're embedding in all of those elements of conversational AI, machine learning, inside of our solution set to deliver that human capital experience, and delivering an agile global people platform that really empowers both HR and their employees to be able to be catalysts inside their organization. So HR to be catalyst to the employees, and the employees to, of course, be catalysts to the outcomes of those organizations. So the key qualities of experience in the human capital management are in valuing every person every day. So they've broken it down into 3 buckets here. So first of all, we want to, individualize it. We want to make it personal, make it focused, make it all about the end user and what he or she expects. Then we want to make it conversational. There are more and more ways to interact with technology. It's no longer about pointing and clicking and long navigation paths. Now we can interact directly with content and services using voice and text. So that's your conversational AI of being able to ask those questions and actually get that feedback. Next, of course, is actually around the feedback is we can ask the user what his experience was like and why, because we want to improve on anything that we're doing now for the individual. And their insights are going to help shape what our company can do and what their career journey is going to look like inside of our organization through that employee voice. For all of these 3 areas, we can enable them using some of the new intelligent technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, chatbots. But equally important, we need to look at consumer experiences. Every employee is a user of HR systems, and their expectations are driven based on their experiences with consumer systems. Yet often they take a step back in time, even 10, 15, 20 years. Today, we expect our experience to have a higher purpose, not just an automated process. So in the past, when we used to buy HR technology, we used to buy it specifically to automate manual processes. Now what we want to do is actually enable and empower our employees and our managers to be able to take advantage of systems to be able to drive their own engagement, their own motivation inside of the solutions, and to work at a pace and capability that they're comfortable with, which is great for us in HR because it actually takes a lot of the heavy lifting off us to make us responsible for that, to enable the employees to have that type of control inside the organization. So I like to always kind of talk about, what actions we can take to start making these changes inside of our organization. And when I was doing my research, I was coming up with a top 5 list, and I ran across Jason Aberbrook, who I'm hoping many of you know, and if you don't, you should follow him. So instead of trying to create my own, I decided to share with you his look at the top 10 kind of action items or things we should be doing inside of our organizations to prepare for this human experience management. So he talks about, we're late in 2019, even later probably than when he first publicized this article. We have to really look and take a checklist of things that we have done inside the organization. We have to make sure that we have a vision for what next year is going to look like in terms of digital HR. He wants you to write it out as a manifesto, and he wants to make sure you're getting buy-in from others, so both inside of HR and outside of HR. He's also saying in 2019, if you have any budget dollars left, you need to start preparing for this execution. What action plans can you take now to get ready to set the table for 2020? Do you need to get outside help, consulting? Do you need to understand what digital is? Do you need to get somebody in to explain to you or get you what we call ready for this digital age, or what we call at HR strategies, reimagining HR? Because we're really at a point in time where we need to rethink how we're doing HR to drive this human experience management. So we've cloned and patented trademarked the term reimagine HR. We created a network of forward-thinking HR leaders that people can join the network and be able to learn a lot more about where the future is going and what the future looks like for HR. Sometimes what Jason is saying, you have to look back to understand what you've accomplished and what you've learned and what the impact has been on the business, and tell the story. And then it will really help you define the work you'll need to do going forward. So we need to figure out specifically, what we've done well, what we haven't done well, and what we want to continue to do. Okay. Next, of course, on here is when you do that, you need to decide with your leadership team what you want to be great at versus what you want to just be okay with. And really prioritize, because prioritization is the key. And any of you can reach out to me at the end. And we've kind of put this checklist together that we use in our Reimagine HR network. And it's the ability for you to look at the key drivers of your organization and see how you're performing in each of those areas. It's kind of a pulse check for you specifically to see where you've been successful and where haven't you been successful. And then to be able to focus specifically on those areas that you think you can move the needle on the greatest to really have output inside your organization. You need to decide who's going to be involved in your workforce experience and design and what specific roles they're going to be played. Obviously, we want to develop a shared vision for your 2020 plan. If everybody's not bought into the vision, you'll never get the results out of it that you want to. You have to design it, you have to select it, you have to configure it, and of course, integration of what the plan is and any tools or technology that are required. And then you let the shared vision trickle down when you tell each stakeholder their role, but you need to be clear in that. So as we talked about earlier in some of those it's a lot about the communications that's important. So we need to, and I believe that cultures can really be built based on proper communications. If people are told again and again what their clear values and their clear corporate cultures are, they start to exemplify and live by those values and those missions inside your organizations. So again, as we start to create this plan and we start to have it trickle through our organizations, what we want to make sure is that people are embracing it and seeing the value of it and seeing the impact it could have on them regardless of their role inside the organization. And then he basically challenged you to say, do one thing outside your comfort zone. If nothing changes unless we all do. And too often in HR, we take baby steps. And the greatest thing about HR actually and the use of technology is today is you can actually go from being at the bottom or like a 1980 HR department to a 2020 HR department without a ton of work. Not that it's not going to be easy, and not that it's not going to take a year or so to accomplish. But the fact is, you can put a plan in place, you can put the processes in place, you can buy the technology and deliver an outcome in a year or 18 months or longer, depending on the size of your organization, that can really move you, as I said, from an archaic 1980 type of operating transactional, if even transactional organization to really being at the leading digital age of HR in 2020. So spend time, as I said, over the 2019, looking both inside and outside of the area of work, and look inside your organization and see what you can do to close that chasm. Put it along the whiteboard with your vision. So wherever your vision are, put where your goals are for where you want to be from an HR perspective. And again, ask me about getting that checklist from our Reimagine HR network, and that will help you think about and look at things that you might need to change. Next of all, of course, is as we start to develop this, idea of where we want to go to be and where we want to evolve, communicate it out. So plan a town hall meeting to provide employees ability, before it's finalized, to share their experiences and gathers the moments that mattered. Find out what really has impacted them from an experience perspective. So think of all the little things that you're already doing and accomplishing and build on them. Make them count by making them count, as Jason says here in the organization. So it's not always starting from scratch. Every organization has good to build off of. And we often use that as what we call the SOAR principle. So instead of looking, at a SWOT analysis, we're looking at our strengths versus our weaknesses with the SOAR methodology. And this is a good way to step back and say, what are we already doing really well with our experiences? And how can we build upon those to make sure that every communication, every interaction with our employees is effective? Do they have the right tools to do their job? Do they have the right coaching and leadership? Are managers helping and facilitating them? Are we as an organization taking advantage of those strengths? All those things are going to be fundamental in building out what your future HR is going to look like. And then Jason's saying, challenge yourself to not just look at 2020. And that's part, again, of our Reimagine HR network is, maybe you don't want to jump way past 2020 and be that leader out there. Your company just doesn't have the appetite to be an innovator out on the marketplace. So you can stop at the 2020, but don't forget to still have a line of sight past that. You're going to want to choose partners that have that vision to take you well past 2020, even though where you may stop in your point of innovation at this time is, at the 2020 realm versus being one of those pioneers or innovators. And then lastly, of course, he says, never forget the people are at the center of it all, including yourselves in HR. He said, design for that and you'll never go wrong. So the whole idea, I think, that a lot of us got into HR was the fact that we're people. So we want to be able to treat people with the respect and the authenticity that we expect to be treated ourselves, and have that culture of inclusiveness and that for all of our employees, and making sure that we know that every one of those 5 generations have different desires and needs, and try to imagine and put in place an organization that's somewhat agile and able to adapt to all of those. So those are all passions that we normally have in HR, is to make sure that our people are happy inside their organizations. And what a better way for making people happy inside of our organizations is to take HR and not just think of it as, are they being paid and they being developed, but saying, is every single interaction they have with us, from how far they have to walk from the parking lot to if they have to line up for lunch, to what the onboarding experience was, to how often they meet with their managers. So what we need to do is really take what we used to think of at a very high level and take it right down to almost a minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day look at how we're interacting and engaging with our employees. And if we do this right and we make our employees the central point of our organizations, we'll get all those results we saw on those Forbes slides. So they're really going to be the ones that are going to catapult our organizations to be successful and profitable, because they're happy and they're engaged and they're telling our story better than anybody can. And then when our customers are happy, they tell our story also as well as anybody else can. And it becomes, makes it easier for organizations to continue to grow, to prosper, and to be that type of company we all want to work for. Okay. So that's a lot of data and a lot of information in 20 minutes. And what I kind of wanted to do, and because Success Factors is key for enabling us to help educate you, is really what I wanted to do now is just show you a little bit about how technology can empower that employee experience inside each and every one of your organizations. So I'm just going to click on that link here and open up the Success Factors and show you a little bit or I should say, walk the talk for you on how technology or digital can can be a game changer for organizations. If I can type the passwords properly. Here we go. Oh, I said that and I did not get in. I apologize. Hang on a second. I think I had it open in another window earlier. Let me just launch this. You always love technology moments like this. Here we go. At first you don't succeed, try again. Sometimes it's the definition of insanity, hoping for different outcomes, but here we go. So I'm logged in right now as Anna Singh, and I'm gonna proxy in as a bunch of different users today and show you some of the great capabilities inside the solution. That's her administrative dashboard. We're gonna jump here to her home dashboard where she can see that she can come in and take actions specifically and see anywhere and anything that she has that she's overdue in. We talked a lot about communications inside of the solution and how important those are. So I want to start by talking about our collaboration tool, which is our Jam product, where you can come in here and create unlimited amounts of groups around key areas to have these great user experiences and touch points. So for example, onboarding is one of our key important areas where we're touching our employees for the first time. So we can create these types of onboarding portals for him where we can introduce them to management team and see who their HR contacts are and go to discussion forums. We can give them guides and data and information. We can give them an onboarding list, see who's on their onboarding team. We can see who else is new inside the organization. We can give them assignments and data and information here. We can create these types of collaboration portals regardless of what we're trying to do inside of the organizations. This is another great one that I like around innovation challenge. So everybody likes to think about better ways for us inside of our organizations to be more effective. So this is kind of like your online suggestion box kind of idea. So we can suggest ideas and we can come into discussion forums, we could hold events specifically here around things around innovations as well. And of course, leadership development and mentoring and coaching. These types of communities can go on and on as far as the capabilities that we have here inside the system to bring people together to share best practices and experiences, to look at knowledge bases and create these portals to keep everybody collaborating and being aligned with each other inside the organization. Now, as Anna also, I want to proxy in really actually and look at this from an employee experience because that's what experience management is all about. So as Anna, I'm going to go in and proxy as Jeff Hill, and I'm going to show you some of the great ways that we can go into the system and enable and empower Jeff to take control over his own career inside the solution. So what we can do as Jeff Hill is look at different ways that I can come in and decide what it is I want to be inside the organization. So let's take a look at this from an actual development perspective. So if I want to think about where I want to be as I grow up inside the organization, I can have a number of development plans. Here I'm looking at a high potential development plan, and I could also have one specific to my career inside the organization. So you can see here I can go in and I can add goals and I can even add learning activities. So if I want to accomplish this better, this critical experiences, I can go right into the learning management system and see what learning items are assigned specifically to improve my knowledge around these. So I can quickly and easily come in here and create my own goals and create my own learning plans right inside the solution. I can look at what roles are available to me inside the organization that meet my skill sets, or I can have lofty, ambitious goals. So here for Jeff, for instance, I can come in and see I want to get into executive management, and I can see how I'm tracking with the skills and competencies that are needed for me. And again, I could go in and create those development plans and these development goals to help me understand how I can make this career progression and this career path that I want to take inside of the organization. Maybe I know I need help. I need to be mentored by somebody in the organization that's going to be able to give me that advice and guidance that I want to. So I can come in and I can decide if I want to be a mentor or sign up as a mentee. So if I want to become an emerging leader, I can join this type of talent pool, and then I can pick and choose what I want to be mentored on inside of the organization. I can say that I want to be an executive officer, and I can put my comments in, and then it can find for me people inside of my organization that are able to be mentors for me, or I can search for a specific mentor if I know one exists that I want to be aligned to. It tells us what we're looking for specifically here inside the system as well. What we're also finding in this high-touch user experience is more and more frequent conversations with our employer or our managers. So what we want to do is create that type of connection so that we can get and have for you, information that we need to be successful. So here with what we're calling continuous performance management, I can come in and I can create activities and achievements on what I'm doing out there that's impacting me in my role or my future role inside the organization. And then I can also add topics that I want to talk to my supervisor about. So maybe maybe there's some new technology I need, or maybe I want to say that I want to get on a leadership development course, and I can create these types of topics here. And then when my boss and I have these specific meetings, we can capture these meetings and it records that we've had these conversations. So what this is doing is it's forcing the manager and the employee to have more frequent conversations, not about how they're doing in their job specifically, but about them personally and how they're developing and what they need to do and so on. And because I have employees here as Jeff Hill, I could come in and do the same to them. And because I'm also their boss, I can give them coaching and feedback at any point in time. And as an employee, I can, given the option, request and give feedback as well. So these are just great ways to help get that type of data and information and feedback from the organization back to us inside the system. So above and beyond these type of interactions, and we could go into many more. I could go into onboarding. I could go into recruiting and show those. I think what I want to do is spend a little bit of time looking at the X data. So those are all the O data points. So these are all the ways that we're touching and enable our employees to be empowered and take control and get feedback and collaborate and make sure it's a great experience for them. But if I want to go out and actually be able to get feedback from them, I want to go into Qualtrics here, which is the latest acquisition of SuccessFactors is Qualtrics. It's an incredible product and a great addition, because we talk about the direct impact that human experience management has, not just on the employees, but the outcome of the employee and the customer. So with Qualtrics, it's a surveying capability that allows you to survey your internal employees as well as your external customers and be able to combine the data and information and see how we're doing. So in this particular scenario, we went out and we looked at the engagement scores, the performance enablement scores, and the manager effectiveness score, and we can see our trending data and information. You can see here I have a good opportunity for career progression at this company. It looks like it needs improvement, and I can even click on here and it tells me how I can maybe improve that, and I can go into the system and actually create action plans inside the system. I can slice and dice this by age and tenure and business units, so I can get all the data that I want to inside the system. We can come in and again see our trending stats and statistics in here. We can look at our overall scorecard on how we're performing from a company perspective here inside the solution on the areas that are important to us. And again, anything that could be improved, we can link right out to those action plans or create action plans specifically for them. We can look at drivers inside the organization, so what's driving and maintaining engagement inside the organization. So here we're finding about career progression, companies' process to enable me to meet customers' needs. You know, am I continuing to work at this company? And we can plot and see this data, and we can pinpoint what's important and highly rated, important but poorly rated, and then rated but not that important to us. How can we drive and maintain performance enablement? How can we curb attrition? Aren't these all questions in HR that we'd love to have the answers for? We can do a heat map specifically here, and we can come in and see based on these particular areas how we're performing on all of these areas and ways that we're engaging with our employees, okay, in the data and information. So as you can see here, just incredible amounts of information that we can build in, and this is the employee experience management, and we do similar with customer experience management on the other side, and then we can pull the data together. So here's your little Wordle that's created, and this is telling us some of the comments that we're getting and how long those people have been inside the organization. So we can read and get that feedback. We can see what's popular based on what level inside the organization. Even look at onboarding results. So how was that onboarding experience? So as we're continuing to prove things, so if you buy a product like SuccessFactors Onboarding, which I didn't show you much of today, but happy to, they can reach out to me. We can see how our employees felt that worked. Even when our employees are leaving, when we're performing exit interviews and questions, we can get valuable feedback into how our organization was seen by that employee and use that data and information to help us. So you can only imagine that having this type of data and information would help you address a lot of those points that Jason pointed out to, and kind of what's working at a preliminary level and how can we improve it and help you set those plans in place. So technology can enable process, but process is also important. So I hope that you found this view of the technology and a little bit of understanding of how we're reimagining HR out in the workplace now, and how we really need to change looking at HR from us just automating functions we do in HR to help us be more effective, to really about putting systems and processes in place to create an unbelievable user experience, because those by far are going to provide much better results than anything we could do just to eliminate some of the time it takes us to move a piece of paper around inside of the organization. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me specifically around those. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have around this, introduce you to our Reimagine HR, do SuccessFactors demos, help you create these types of blueprints to get you to be leading edge inside your organization. We're always here to assist and enable you. Somebody did ask if we could get copies of the presentation, and definitely we'll be sending those out. Again, thank you very much for spending time with us today. I hope you found something that you learned from today, or at least reinforced what you were thinking this HXM is out on the marketplace. And I'm hoping Jason's words of wisdom will empower you to take some actions, get out of whatever century or decade that you're in, get a little bit more innovative with what you're doing, and take some real steps to improving employee experience so that you can really empower your company to reach their financial goals. Have a great day.